Matthew Collar and Mike Zimmer here. Not Mike Zimmer. That was Mike Zimmer. Alex Boone here. Now, what is your takeaway from that? Because we spent some time talking about what he said pertaining to Kirk Cousins, where he criticized Cousins for giving away too much information in his post-game press conference. And then Cousins turbo-snarked a little about it yesterday. But when you say the offensive line wasn't sustaining their blocks long enough and things like that, what is the response in the offensive line room?
I think it's honest. I think if you look at the film, it's an honest assessment. You know, and there's times when, as an offensive lineman, your coach will say something, and you're like, okay, well, that's the truth.
Right.
You know, you got to take it and move on. And he's right. You got to get into the blocks more. And this is one of the things that we talked about. I don't know, was it 2 weeks ago or whatever? But we had talked about the things we want to see moving forward. And one of the things is with this offensive line being more physical at the point of attack.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about, you look at this Kansas City game, and you're like, man, it feels like Dalvin can't even get through the line of scrimmage. And then you really watch the game. And you see guys like going to cut, and we joked about the crash pad the other day about the cutting drills and the donuts. I'm watching these guys cut, and I'm like, man, they really need to hit the crash pad some more. Like, you can't just fall down in front of somebody, okay? This isn't the lollygag.
I know exactly what play you're referring to.
Thank you. Elfline. Yes.
I actually sent it to Courtney, and I said, watch Elfline and Garrett Bradbury just fall down in front of guys, and then they make the tackle.
We think too much alike. It's insane, but it's so true because you're watching it, and you're like, dude, this is just a lazy effort. It's a lack of effort. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a way to cut somebody, and then there's a way to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, man, I'm just going to fall down, throw a hand, I'm going to cut him real quick. And then there's like, hey, I'm going to take this dude's knee out, all right? So get the hell out of my way when I go to cut him. Because there's times when you have to get it done. And when you're running the zone with Dalvin, especially, when the cutback is so important, if you're going to let Dalvin cut it back, you need to get guys on the ground. You need to start cutting them. And in turn, what an offensive lineman never got about this was the more you get a guy on the ground, the less likely you have a chance at him rushing over you, right? Like him coming out of his stance after you've cut through his knees 3 or 4 times, he's like, dude, seriously? Really, bro? You're like, yeah, this is a 3-step. I'm about to cut you again. Watch this. And then he's like, is it really a 3-step? Could it be a 3-step? It's 2nd and 6. It could be a 3-step. Like, then he's like, man, I don't know if I want to rush. There's so many games you have to play with people, but when you do it lazily or you just fall down, you give the defense the upper hand right away.
And that's supposed to be their strength because clearly standing in there and just stopping a guy one-on-one is not going to be their strength. I have a fun stat for you. So we went through this before, what Pro Football Focus graded you in 2016. They credited you for allowing 16 quarterback pressures. That was by their way of doing it, not your offensive line coach or whatever else might be looked at. But that's how they did it. This year so far, both Pat Elflein and Garrett Bradbury have given up 20, and the season is not even close to over with 20 each, 40 total between those two. In 2016, you gave up 16. I mean, like, and right? I mean,
I sucked, right? Yeah, no, listen,
they are not by these metrics, but yes.
No, but the problem is when you don't see all these too, because when you're watching the game, they always follow the ball, right? So these hits and these pressures, you don't see them. So you're like, what are you talking about? The guys played great. And then you watch the coaches film, you're like, whoa.
Right. Yes.
Wow.
That's totally
these
true.
guys,
yep.
They look a lot closer than this film than they do on TV.
Right.
Like on TV, it looks like they run around the edge. But when you watch the coaches film and you see how close these dudes get, and if you think for 1 minute that a defensive end just runs right by the quarterback and doesn't say something, or doesn't give him a little nudge, or doesn't say something like, yo, bro, I'm 1 step away. I am 1 step from just taking your life. You know how many times I used to hear people say that? I'm 1 step from taking your life. And I'd be like, dude, he's not. Don't worry. We're going to cut him before he gets close.
But with Kirk Cousins, they were one step away on Sunday.
Less than.
When I went back and watched it, Alex, the biggest thing that I came away with was you have to understand, if you're the Vikings, that this is not a guy who's going to roll around when pressure comes up at the middle. He's not going to shuffle his feet beautifully like Tom Brady in the pocket away from the pressure. He's going to get to his spot where he's supposed to be, and he's going to stop there, and he's going to stay there, which has some benefits, I'm sure. If you're a tackle, then you probably know you could push your guy by, and he's not going to necessarily get to the quarterback if he's in his same spot. But if you're a guard or center and they're getting overpowered, that's why Kirk Cousins was throwing off platforms so many times. That's why you said, wait, why is he so inaccurate today? Why is he overthrowing guys on short passes? Well, some of it's certainly his fault, but the interior pressure was causing a lot of it. And that gets me to our matchups here. I think it really starts with Malik Collins in the middle, who is a beast of a player. He's got 27 pressures this year. DeMarcus Lawrence as well. if these guys pressure Cousins on the road in prime time, we know what the result is going to be, but I don't know what the counterpunch is supposed to be for the Vikings when just personnel-wise, Elflein and Bradbury cannot handle powerful people who can push them back into the quarterback.
Dude, did you just skip over Michael Bennett too?
I know, that's right. Now he's on the team
Robert
now.
Quinn
Yep.
Robert Quinn.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. If you look at this D line, and maybe I haven't been just watching Dallas, or maybe because they lost to the Jets, I was like, I have to write this team off for a while. But if you look at their D line over the last like 4 or 5 weeks, they have added some players that you're like, wait a minute, stop. We need to really, we
Michael
need to rethink
Bennett's 6
this.
pressures in his first game and a sack.
We need to rethink this, especially when you have Mike over there, because let me tell you about Mike. This is the most undisciplined player. And when I say that, I don't mean he is like the worst player. I mean, this dude can slither in ways I've never seen a human move. Like, I'm not even kidding you. I used to hate blocking him, but I can proudly say that Mike and I had some seriously fun battles. And I always took the upper hand on him. But this dude is so erratic with his movements that you don't know which way he's going, and when he's thinking he's going somewhere. We used to have whole new protections called on because of him, because he would line up outside the tackle, and right before the snap, he was head up over the center. And you were like, wait a minute, where's he going?
How'd you get there?
And then as an offensive lineman, you're like, wait a minute, the tackle can't just go down to the center. Like, whose responsibility does that become? So now you have a floater, right? And you're like, oh my God, where's he going? What's he doing? Who has control of him? Are we cutting him? Michael Bennett is one of those guys that you better have your eyes on. And not only that, but then you add Robert Quinn, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Malik. Dude, I'm telling you, Malik Collins in the middle. We played him in 2016. That dude was good. I know he's had some down years, but he is still as quick twitch as he has ever been. These guys are playing hot right now, and the defense knows that they are kind of a lot of the reason why they're playing so hot is because these dudes are so on fire with the way they play.
Right. This is a pretty severe mismatch again when you look at the talent that Dallas has on their defensive line.
I have an answer though.
The Vikings. Okay, well that's what I'm curious in. What's the answer?
Yes. Okay, so here, we used to do this protection, and I've kind of put 2 protections together, but we used to have this protection. It's called Mustang Protection. And it was important because it was when the 3 guys in the middle, the interior core, always stuck together. And basically what you did was you just hold everything. And it was like, okay, whoever's in front of you automatically becomes the mic. And then from there, you say you 3 have the 2 defensive tackles and the mic, no matter what happens. Now, you just better hope that they don't start blitzing the mic around the edge, because then your center has to pick a side. You want him to just sit in the middle and do what he can. But you have 2 running backs in the backfield. And what they used to do is they would take the Sam and the Will, because, every once in a while, teams just drop you all the time. And so they would just get late releases, but they would help the tackles on the way out, or they would help the guards on the way out. Like, there was protections that you could put in against teams, especially a team like this that's going to put their 4 best rushers out there. Then they're going to put Jaylon Smith in the middle right over your center and make you go 5-0. Like, they're going to force you to do things you don't want to do. So when they do something like that, turn everything into a full slide. Listen, the minute somebody walks up over the center, the minute something becomes we're not sure where we're going, the minute they're trying to get us on an island, we're going to full slide everybody to the left or to the right. And listen, the running back stays in. I get it. Some coaches think that's terrible because they're like, that's your best answer. Like, if pressure comes that you can't respond to, you have to have your running back running in the flat, because that's the guy that you're going to get the ball to. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes he's got to stay in and help 2 guys. I'm sorry, but dude, this is where Irv Smith Jr. is going to show up huge this week, I think. And they're going to need him to, because if Thielen really can't play, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, dude, they're going to be trying as much as they can to stop the run, right? And after that, it's going to be stop Diggs. And after that, hey, listen, if your tight end goes all willy-nilly on us, we'll let our linebackers do the best they can.
Well, you're leading me exactly where I wanted to go next, which was Amari Cooper might not play in this one. Adam Thielen, I think, is very unlikely. After seeing him today, he wasn't doing anything. He was completely out of practice, just standing there and watching them go through drills. And now you're going to rely again on BC Johnson, and you're going to rely again on Irv Smith. And every time they've had to rely on those guys, they've stepped up. BC Johnson caught a touchdown down the middle of the field, a great catch by Irv Smith. And I'm very interested to see whether Dallas copies some of the we're going to play 2 deep safety stuff that Kansas City did and say, let's rely on our defensive line being more talented than their offensive line and make sure that Stephon Diggs doesn't get behind us. I thought Kansas City did an incredibly good job, but that to me opens up the possibility of Irv Smith in the middle of the field.
Right. Well, yeah, and he's going to be huge this game. I mean, him and Rudy, and like you said, BC. I mean, it's going to be all the guys that are new. And Dallas, Rod Marinelli, he's an old coach. He's a tough coach. And you talk about Chris Richard coming from Seattle, like the Legion of Boom. This dude's trying to fix everything he can. If there's yards to be had, it's going to be with BC Johnson and Irv Smith Jr. They're going to be like, you know what? Let your two young guys try and beat us. And if they can, then that'll be the way it